What's going on, guys? It's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today I'm going to be reviewing our largest full-size SUV, which is a 2025 Sequoia. Now, this being a platinum model, it's pretty high up on the trim level. We're going to take a closer peek to see what this vehicle offers you inside and out. So stay tuned and let's check it out. Let's talk powertrain on the 2025 Sequoia. So this is powered by a 3.4 liter twin turbo V6. It's going to be pushing out 437 horsepower, 583 pound-feet of torque through a 10-speed automatic gearbox. Now, this is going to be our most powerful powertrain that we currently offer in our lineup. And for a vehicle at this size, it definitely gives you a lot of capabilities on the towing side, on the power side, and just getting up to speed, which is pretty cool to be having from a manufacturer like Toyota. Now let's talk about the front end to start. This is gonna be featured in supersonic red, which to be honest is not gonna be my #1 choice in color. However, I do think this color actually looks pretty good on this vehicle with all of the dark accents, which we'll be going over throughout the video. Now, looking at the front end design, your headlights to start with, that is a triple beam LED with sequential turn signals, which in my opinion is going to be the nicest style and the best visibility you'll be getting off of any of our headlights that are offered throughout our lineup. A couple things on the vehicle that I'm going to point out that I'm maybe not going to be the biggest fan of, but they are going to be coming standard on this package. Now, looking down below, you're going to have this big plastic piece. And if you see my previous videos, you know I'm not a huge fan of plastic. Now, this is what they call an active front spoiler. You can remove these. There's a couple different clips on the bottom half of this, and this is offered on a Tacoma as well. Now, they say it's supposed to be increasing your fuel efficiency. However, I think I'd be taking it off to actually challenge to see what you would average between, having this active front spoiler on or off the vehicle, because for me, it's kind of an eyesore on the front end. And for me, if you're getting up to any close, tight parking spots, because this vehicle is coming in as probably our largest SUV, it's gonna be close to the 4Runner size when the new 2025s actually arrive here. However, this is going to be something that you don't have much ground clearance off of. So I think that if you're pulling into a smaller spot, maybe that could give you maybe a few different issues when you are parking this vehicle, and something that obviously you wouldn't want to be braking on a vehicle coming in at this price point. Now, the one thing I will be saying that I do like is going to this massive front grille. Now, I know it does have a little bit of chrome on this vehicle throughout, and I know as a platinum grade, the platinum badging is going to have a little bit of extra chrome. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it. I wish it was all black like they offer on a nightshade version of this vehicle, but for me, it's not the end of the world because they've kind of kept it more minimal than obviously some other vehicles that we have in our lineup. Now, this being our biggest SUV, yeah, you can see that from the front end, this is huge. It's the one vehicle that I'm next to, just like a Tundra, that actually makes me feel a little bit smaller when I am next to it. And definitely on the inside, if you're a bigger family or you just want a lot of space, this could definitely be a vehicle for you. Now, interesting enough, on this vehicle, they're offering now a Sequoia, which will come optional with power retractable tow mirrors. Now, these will push all the way out just in case you are towing anything, because a Sequoia here in Canada does come tow ready. You take off a back clip on your rear bumper. With these tow mirrors, you can push them out and you're clear to tow up to about 9,100 pounds, which is pretty good. So if you got, a larger boat, you're hauling a trailer, anything like that, this could be a very well-equipped vehicle for you. Now, on the sides, my favorite feature of this vehicle, there's gonna be actually two of them. #1 is going to these 20-inch dark gray, or yeah, I guess I'd call it a gray alloy wheel. Now, this looks really good on this vehicle, and I think that obviously having a larger rim on a vehicle at this size is something that I would be opting in for. You could be upgrading to even 21-inch on a capstone model. Those rims would probably be my favorite out of any Sequoia rims that you can get from the factory, but I would be more than happy with these ones here. Now, the other feature I'm a huge fan of is going to be once you're on the side of this vehicle. You can obviously, it says platinum badging on the side, and it kind of has some of that dark chrome, but it's not the actual, bright chrome like you see on the front grille. But when you actually get over to the side of the vehicle, you open the door and your power folding retractable running boards will come out for you. And then as you close the door, they will obviously then retract back up to the side of the vehicle. You can turn that feature on and off just in case, you know, you're next to a curb, something like that, or say it's super, super icy, you didn't want to damage anything, you can turn that off. But I think having a vehicle already coming equipped with that gives you a lot of value for money in the price point that a new Sequoia will run you. Okay, now taking a closer look onto the rear end of the Sequoia. You know you're in this vehicle because Toyota has opted in to give you some very large badging on the rear end of this vehicle. And as you can see, Sequoia written all the way on the bottom of your trunk. And I'm happy Toyota has done that because typically they opt in to put something smaller as your, you know, vehicle logo, I guess, on the rear end of your car. So typically it would say, you know, RAV4 there, but in this case, I'm happy it's written in large that says Sequoia on the back. The only small decal they've added on the rear end of this vehicle is going to be in the bottom right corner, which will say iForce Max, because the new Sequoias are only offered with this powertrain, which is a hybrid, which is nice because a vehicle this size, obviously you'd want to be saving some gas versus some competitors on the market. Now, couple cool things that you do get on this vehicle straight from the factory in Canada. Number one is going to be this cover down here, which is going to be for your tow hitch. So all you have to do is throw a ball mount on it with a ball, and then you can tow up to about 9,100 pounds. So anything larger, a smaller utility trailer, a boat, even like a small little, you know, pop-up camper, you'd be more than happy with this vehicle to actually tow that for you and your family with all the space that this vehicle offers. With another really good convenience feature, you can actually open up this rear glass by simply hitting this little black button here. You pop it open and you can load anything in. So if your car was packed all the way full, you could at least throw stuff in to make it more accessible for you and your family, throwing, you know, any last minute things up to the cottage into the rear trunk of this vehicle. Now it also opts in with your kick sensor, so you can put your foot underneath the rear bumper and that will open up the trunk for you, which I think is obviously a very convenient feature. Now, if you guys saw that on camera, because sometimes it's a little bit harder to actually see, your rear turn signals and lights back here are going to be sequential and LED. So it just gives the vehicle that much more of that premium look. And I think Toyota has done a pretty good job in styling this, you know, huge SUV that we offer. Now, with the rear seats currently up, you actually still have quite a bit of usable storage space. So these are the mats you get with the vehicle. The summer mats are here, the winters are inside, and obviously this is still going to be giving you quite a bit of space on the rear trunk space for this vehicle. Another cool thing that they do offer is that you can actually move around this loading height, and you can actually put these shelves in on each side of the vehicle. So in case you had, you know, a stack of, you know, different groceries or, you know, a couple gift sets or some small things you didn't want to be like, you know, slamming around in the back and you want to actually kind of, you know, separate them in the rear, you can do that with this vehicle, which I think is a pretty cool, you know, option to at least have just in case you and your family had stuff to throw into this vehicle. Now, this is going to be one way you can configure a Sequoia. You can also configure it as an 8-passenger. This is going to be a 7, so it's going to have a bench seat in the second row. We're going to take a closer peek to look on the inside of this to see what this vehicle offers, because there's quite a lot on it. So let's go in and check it out. All right, guys, let's take a closer peek onto the inside of the Sequoia. Now, this vehicle is going to be our largest SUV that we currently offer, and you definitely feel that being on the inside of this vehicle. Now, a lot of things are laid out here and it's very accessible for users. And that's something that I noticed when this vehicle was, you know, refreshed. They did a very good job to make the layout newer, but also keeping it very, you know, user-friendly in case you were one of those people that had the old generation Sequoia or were just looking to getting into a newer SUV, that you don't feel overwhelmed on the inside, you know, with all the capabilities this vehicle does offer onto the interior. Now, a couple things that I will be saying on this specific trim level that I'm a huge fan of. Number one, you get power passenger and driver seats with genuine leather, which are heated and cooled just like your second row as well. Both people in the second row, there's no bench, just the captain seats. Those ones will be heated and cooled, which is obviously just giving more, you know, features, I guess, for anyone else you'll be having inside of this vehicle. A few other things that I also love on this vehicle, which if you see my previous videos, you know I'm a huge fan of a moonroof. So having this open definitely makes this vehicle feel even bigger than it is. And it actually feels very large when you're driving it. Typically on a vehicle, I've never really said in any of our lineups so far that I feel too big on the road. You definitely feel, you know, in charge, I guess I could say. So you definitely feel a bit higher up and a bit more in power, especially with everything this vehicle does have to offer. A couple things though I will be saying that I love. If you go onto your infotainment system in this vehicle on this platinum grade, this is going to be a 14-inch touch display with wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, all the good stuff. You go down here to this little vehicle logo, I guess, and then hit seat controls. From there, you click the only option, which is massage, and you either then pick your driver or passenger. So I'll pick driver. In this sense, I will go to, say, upper body, turn the power is going to come on, and your intensity. You've got 5 different levels, and now the rear of my seat is actually kind of pushing out on my back, which is really nice. I think that it is a new feature that we've added onto some of our 2025s, and I think that it's one of those things that kind of, you know, make a trim level like this feel a little bit more premium, because if you're taking this on a long road trip, just having your back kind of moving in a different way definitely would make you feel, I guess, a little bit more, you know, at ease while you're driving, say for 5, 6, 7 hours, or doing, you know, some kind of long road trip over, you know, a course of a few days. Now, that's standard on this vehicle, and I think that that mixed with, say, your JBL sound system, your digital rear view display mirror up here, your largest screens, your full digital tachometer in front of you, it does offer a lot of great capabilities onto the inside, and you don't have to do, you know, a whole lot. Like, it's very simple to simply, you know, navigate through this screen or navigate through all of my controls down by my left knee down here. So for example, if I was towing something and I wanted to pop out my mirrors, I simply push out this button that pushes out my mirrors, and then very simply my mirrors would then push out, so that if I'm towing something, I can see way more of actually what is behind me. Now, with a vehicle being this size, I'm just going to move the key up here next to the wireless charger. You can obviously have a lot of spots and different space, I guess, in this vehicle to throw stuff in. So if you pop open in the middle here, you've got 2 cup holders here. You actually theoretically have 2 as well in both of your doors. So you're going to have theoretically 6 up front with another 2 right here. Now, these are going to be built, I guess, maybe for the passengers in the back, but they also have cup holders in the, you know, in between their center console there. So you do have a lot of usable space. You definitely look into the middle of your storage down here as well. You have quite more spots to put, you know, whether that's a laptop, an iPad, charging cables, anything like that. So I think they have done a really good job to kind of give you that larger feel on the inside of this vehicle, but also still giving you a lot of practical space. And I think that some manufacturers on the market and other vehicles in the market these days, you get a vehicle that's massive like this, but on the inside it feels a little bit more cramped, or there's maybe not enough storage space for, you know, an everyday user. So I think Toyota has done a very good job to add that in. Now, the last thing I will be saying on this vehicle, which is going to be more catered for someone if you're going to say off-road this vehicle, or if you're towing something and you want to change around what the vehicle is actually doing. You have all of your different drive modes down here, your tow and haul, which you have 5 drive modes, and you can obviously then shuffle between your 2 high, 4 high, and your 4 low. The really cool thing that I think that, you know, people would pay for on this vehicle, which I don't really think is really standard on a whole lot of our vehicles, but it makes sense coming in at this price point, and obviously with the tow capabilities that this vehicle does have, is that this different settings down here, you've got 2 different modes with either manual or this one that kind of shows the Sequoia with 2 arrows. You can actually push this down and the vehicle has adaptive air suspension in the rear. So if you're, say, towing something that you need a little bit lower of the ball to actually drop down to, say, match up with a trailer, or you kind of want to offset that weight to make it easier to drive, you can do that. And I think that's a really cool feature that they can throw into the vehicle to either, say, get you unstuck in a situation or to tow something. They have done a pretty good job, you know, well equipping a vehicle at this price point, and as they should. You should be buying a vehicle that has a lot of features. Whether you use it or not, it's just great to obviously have it. The only one thing I'm going to be saying on this vehicle that I'm not a huge fan of on this grade specifically, maybe if the outside was a different color, I would be more in favor of this, but I'm not a huge fan of all of this blue stitching on the inside. I think that having that blue, it's cool, it's unique. You typically don't see a whole lot of that on the market, or say in a manufacturer like Toyota, but I think that I would much rather that be either white or just black. Or maybe, you know, a cool mix could just be color matching the actual outside color, which would kind of give you more of what, you know, what the outside's doing versus the inside of the vehicle. That's just the only thing I think I would be, say, adjusting on this vehicle. But other than that, I think that on the inside and outside, they have done a pretty good job to well equip it. Now, I'm gonna jump into the rear just to see what the space is like onto the second and third row. So let's go on and check it out. Alrighty, now jumping into the rear seats of the Sequoia. Now, I'm more than comfortable back here. I think that this being our largest SUV, I should be feeling comfortable. If you're having people that say are a bit taller like myself, I want to feel very comfortable in the rear seats. Now, in the third row, maybe not so much, and that's okay. I'm happy at least they have usable space, whether, you know, this is a 5-passenger in the second half of this vehicle, so a bench and a bench, or like this one, captain seats with the bench in the rear. I still think that is, you know, giving more families and more customers that accessibility getting into the third row. And I think I would configure mine this way. I think not having the bench, if I didn't need the 8 passengers, just simply getting in and out, this makes it so much easier. Rather than dropping the bench and moving the seats forward, you could actually walk all the way back and then obviously scoot yourself back into the third row there. Now, sitting back here, a couple things that I will be noting that, like I mentioned in the front, cup holders there's a lot in this car, and they've kind of overkilled the cup holders, but that's okay. It's better to have too much than too little, I think. So you've got 2 in the middle here, 2 in the middle up here, and then in your door, you theoretically could put another 1 or even 2 if you drop the water bottle and laid it flat. So again, storage space is huge on a vehicle like this, and they have delivered in a very big way from Toyota's side. If you're ever in the back of one of these and say the sun's coming in, I like how the fact that this has built-in sun shaders. So you simply pull this up. It's really easy to do so. There's a clip here and a clip on the back, which just makes it very accessible for anyone in the rear, just in case it was a bit, you know, sunny outside and you didn't want to close the moonroof all the way. This is a pretty good option that obviously comes standard from Toyota. Now, the only thing getting into the rear of this vehicle, there are a couple things that they have added, which I think, I mean, at this price point, I would assume, but it's nice because into the third row behind this seat, it's kind of awkward to reach back there right now, but you can actually retract the third row with a simple push of a button. You push a button, hold it down, and the seats will actually retract for you. So again, it's way more accessible, but then again, I also do like the feature of just pulling a tab and the full thing comes down all in one. Because if you had, you know, groceries and your hands were full, that's definitely making it a bit more accessible for anyone into the third row. However, talking about the third row, I'm going to jump back there. It's probably not going to be the most comfy for someone at my size, but I'll at least take a seat. I've actually never sat in the third row of a Sequoia before, so I'm kind of interested to see what this does versus, say, a Grand Highlander, because that's probably the closest thing size-wise that you'll be getting with, you know, usable space. So let me climb back there, and I'll see you guys in a second. Okay, now we're in the third row of the Sequoia, and probably by the way you're looking at me right now, I'm not sitting the most comfortable. Now, I do have the option, and I guess all 3 passengers in the back do have that option to actually recline this even further. So I have a button on my side. I simply push it and I'm kind of like lounging now. So that actually made it way more comfortable for me. I don't think I would be complaining. Maybe if I was a little bit claustrophobic, which I actually am. So maybe eventually if this was all the way packed and I had all my buddies sitting next to me, maybe it wouldn't be the most, you know, I would say comfortable ride in that sense in actual space back here. But you know, if you're talking about if I fit, I do fit. So that is pretty crazy that I could be fitting into the third row of one of our SUVs. Now, if you want to just simply retract this, I'm going to ask for Alex's help, and he's simply going to hold a button. This will fully fold flat for me, which is actually pretty nice. And with that down, that actually gave me way more space. So I'm more than happy here now. If I had all 3 of these seats taken up, it might be a little bit more different. But I think that with this being said, I'm actually pretty happy here. And you do have that option into the trunk. You do have buttons in the rear of this trunk to actually fold these seats down and your actual middle row too. So I think that, you know, accessibility wise, they have done a pretty good job. Now, talking cup holder theme, which I mentioned there's a lot of in this vehicle, you still get a lot into the rear. So I've got 2 on my side. There's 2 on this side. There's a small little cubby down here, which you can't see, but there's not a whole lot you could put into it. I would say maybe the size of a phone, but it does have a USB charging port on top of that. So it's at least nice giving some, charge to, your third row passengers. You don't have to be in the second or in the first row. You can definitely get a charge anywhere that you're sitting on the inside of this vehicle. And now, similar to the middle row, like I was mentioning, you actually get built-in sun shaders on the rear of this vehicle too. So in case you're in like a sunny spot, or you just wanted that closed up, you actually do get a little bit of privacy if you ever needed that into the third row. But all in all, I actually think they've done a pretty good job. And this versus, say, a Grand Highlander, I know they come in at different price points. There's different engines, there's different powertrains, a lot different power, different capabilities of this vehicle. But I know that if you're, say, upgrading from a Highlander, say a Grand Highlander Hybrid Max, to an entry-level Sequoia, yes, you are moving up quite a bit on the dollar side of things, but I'm interested to see what you guys would think of if you say, this was in your budget as well, but obviously if this was in your budget, the Grand Highlander Hybrid also would be. Which one would you rather go for? Do you think you're getting more value for money on a Sequoia side, or is it a Grand Highlander side? Because these vehicles are pretty similar in the sense of how many people they can carry, different features on the inside. It's mainly just space is a little bit bigger on this. It's more of that boxy feel, even from the outside, but it's more true on the inside. You definitely feel like this is just as wide as the back than it is in the front. So I think Toyota's done a pretty good job, but I'm interested to see what you guys say down below. All right, guys, there you have it. The 2025 Platinum Sequoia with tow mirrors. Now, this vehicle coming in for the 2025 model year, MSRP $97,625 plus this paint. This paint, Supersonic Red, is an extra $255 from Toyota. But genuinely, from the price point of this vehicle, with all the features that are offered and stuff that you wouldn't have to worry about, like running boards, like obviously your powered seats in the third row and in the second row, tow hitch capabilities right from the factory, this does give you quite a bit of options for the dollar figure you're spending. So I'm interested to see what you guys think. Is this something that you would be opting in for or considering for your next, full size 7 or 8 passenger vehicle? Let me know down below in the comments. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. Again, my name is Aiden with Upper James Toyota. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any more of our future Toyota related content, and we'll check you guys out in the next video. 6 years ago, Toyota offered a TRD Pro 4Runner, and now, 6 years later, this 2019 5th generation TRD Pro 4Runner is holding some crazy value on today's market. My name's Aiden with Upper James Toyota, and today we're gonna be taking a close in-depth review to see exactly why this 5th gen 4Runner is holding such great value. If you guys are in the market for a new or used vehicle, do not forget to click the link in the top of our description. All right, to kick things off, let's start with the obvious, this color. For 2019, this was offered in only the TRD Pro, which is Voodoo Blue. I think it's one of the coolest colors Toyota has ever put for one of our larger vehicles. And I know obviously into, say, the newer or latest, model years for 2022 and 2023, the GR86 came in a color, a blue, which is called Neptune Blue, which is pretty close to this one. Now, on today's current lineup, there's really nothing close to this color of blue. So it's pretty interesting that I have one of these here today, and it's actually right now currently for sale on our used lot. Now, this being a 5th generation 4Runner, obviously the 6th generation is currently out right now. That's a 2025 and up. That is going to be offered obviously as a gas model or a hybrid powertrain, but the big controversial topic is that the new generation, they've cut out this old 4-liter V6 and replaced it with a turbo 4-cylinder. Now, for most people on today's market, they didn't like that because this generation of 4Runner was so reliable. People would drive these to the ground, they'd do whatever they wanted in this vehicle, and they wouldn't have many issues. Now, the only really big downfall to this generation of 4Runner was that it was very, very heavy on gas. One of these bad boys, thinking, it's a 4-liter V6, it only made 270 horsepower, 278 pound-feet of torque through a 5-speed automatic gearbox, which averaged in and around, Toyota said, 13.3 liters per 100. Now, being someone who drove this over the winter time. Now I know obviously driving a vehicle in the winter time or on a day like today when it's 44 degrees out, obviously your AC would be blasting, so your fuel efficiency wouldn't be the greatest. However, I have driven one of these over the winter time one winter, and this bad boy averaged me about 17 liters per 100. So it's definitely no fuel efficient beast in my own opinion. However, that is, I think, one of the things that people loved about it was because you had this massive vehicle that stood out specifically in this color right now. And it was one of those simple but very practical vehicles. I love what Toyota did, styling this vehicle. And obviously I know with this generation of 4Runner versus, the old generation, so the 4th gen or 3rd gen, they made small improvements. But the funny thing is on the inside, you would think getting into a 2019, there's a lot of, maybe newer features, from the outgoing generation or the generation prior to that. There's not a whole lot, so stay tuned on the inside. Now, the one thing I will say that I am a huge fan of on this vehicle is that I love the fact that the blue is just shown throughout and there's no chrome anywhere. So I love the fact around the windows, there's no silver chrome, because I think on this color, it definitely would have thrown off the look of this vehicle. This vehicle was built to put it off-road. That's why you have these big tires. And I like the fact that they've kind of stuck to their roots to kind of make it and keep it very, very simple and straightforward. Now, you'll be seeing that a lot more when we get to the inside, so stay tuned for that in about 2 seconds. Now, this has to be one of the coolest features on the 4Runner, and I'm really happy to say that this actual feature is still offered on the new 2025, so I love that. Now, getting out of this, pretty simple. Obviously, if you had any luggage, dogs, I always love seeing this generation of 4Runner or just any 4Runner, even same with a Tundra, the rear window does fold down, but I love the fact seeing, one of these on the road and the owner's got a couple dogs and they're just hanging out the back, having the time of their life. I just think it's a really cool feature that Toyota had added for this vehicle, and I love the fact that's still true onto the new 6th generation 4Runners. Now, the TRD Pro, obviously meaning this is the most off-road capable version of the 4Runner that we offer. I love the fact that it's still very practical. Now, you can spec this either as a 5-seater or a 7-seater, but for the TRD Pro, it's only offered as a 5-seater. So with that being said, you have a lot of trunk space. If you put luggage, dogs, groceries, a big shop at, Home Depot, whatever you would like, you can throw anything in there. So I love the fact that, this basically sits on a truck platform. So it's more stiff to drive in. It's definitely not, as comfortable as say a Highlander or a Sequoia would be, because it is definitely more of a rougher ride. But I think that's what people love about this vehicle, is that it's kind of like driving a truck, but you have the practicality of obviously throwing a lot of space in, maybe not the bed, practicality, but you know what I'm trying to say is that you can still throw a lot of stuff in here without having to sacrifice, an open bed, say in a trunk. Now, the weird thing is a vehicle at this price point, you would think it would come with obviously a power tailgate. It doesn't. So this window is automatic, but if you're ever opening up this vehicle, you simply have to hit this button and that's what would open and close it. Now, the one thing I will say I'm just not a fan of on it, I don't like how they put all this chrome on the back. I love the fact that from the factory, they throw in blacked out badging for your TRD Pro logo. I think that especially on Voodoo Blue, that definitely pops out a bit more than say a chrome or something else. So I like what they've done there. However, I still think with this generation of 4Runner, I do love the new ones. I love the new tech in it, new safety features, fuel efficiency, love the hybrid option in it too, but I still do have a soft spot for these vehicles. And I think that's what owners of them love about it. It's because they're just so simple. They don't break down. They have definitely been a very reliable vehicle, from when they were first introduced all the way up until now. And I think that's why a lot of people are having this controversial, turn of a head, because the new ones have changed just so much. Now give me 2 seconds, I'm gonna jump on the inside just to show you what the interior of one of these 2019 TRD Pros could offer you. All right guys, now let's take a closer peek onto the inside of this 4Runner. Now it's kind of funny getting into one of these versus obviously what's currently on the market for us. Now I like the fact it's got a sunroof. I've got it closed right now just because it's so hot today and getting out of the sun is actually a pretty nice treat right now. But I love the fact that the inside, and I think this is why people love it, it's just that it's just easy. It's basic to operate, The switches are laid out very easy. You look at this little screen, And in today's market, you look at, I think the screen's 6.1 inches. And obviously, on a new 4Runner, a TRD Pro, they're 14 inches. So, almost 3 times the size on a new one. It's pretty comical looking at this little thing, and especially if you hit this little angle of the map on it. So your GPS is half of the size of the screen. So your GPS layout is 3 inches. So you can see what's playing on your music, from your phone, but then you look at the other side, which is your GPS, because it has embedded navigation. Now, this is the interesting thing. For a 2019, this does not have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Typically on most Toyotas, depending what you had, a 2019 would have plug-in Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. That was on the 2020s. For the 4Runner, both come for 2020, and they're both plug and play. So there's no wireless. Wireless was only offered on the newer generations. Now, the cool thing about this is that you look down and it looks a bit more dated, I guess. Obviously, it's 6 years old, but the layout of this and just the simplicity of the inside, I think is why people love this vehicle. You drive this, you look out and about, you see, baby blue everywhere when you look, over your hood. I think it's just really cool what Toyota has done. They've still added a couple small little features like a TRD shift knob, TRD embroidered into the headrest of your front seats. Obviously, you do have heated front seats, but no cooled seats, no heated rear seats. There's some small things and convenience features that this is definitely lacking. And I can tell you, because I've driven this vehicle countless amount of times, especially over the winter time, number one, it is a beast in the snow. If you need something that's good all year round and fuel efficiency wasn't on your top needs, this could definitely be a vehicle for you. Even the new generations, fuel efficiency isn't the greatest, but this gen, I do love them. And people would ask me, Aiden, would you go for the old gen, the new gen? There's reasons why I would pick both. I think that bang for the buck, I would have to get a new generation just because one of these is holding such good value on today's market that the resale for these Tacomas is really only going up. Now, obviously we're in 2025, almost in 2026. I'm not too sure what the next few years or couple years have in store for the old generation, vehicles for, the 4Runner, same with the Tundra, same with the Tacoma, because all of those got, a refreshed design in the last 3-4 years. So, you guys can stay tuned to see exactly what the market would offer for those vehicles. But, in my own opinion, I do love them. If they were, significantly less than the new generation, maybe I'd be persuaded to be getting one of these. But because they hold such great value, which is a really good thing and a great, reason to own one, I still would have to say, even though I love them, I would be going for a new generation. You guys can let me know down below in the comments. Now, to wrap things up, guys, I didn't mention one thing in the beginning, which I want to mention right now. If you're someone, who buys a vehicle, for me, I personally like how my vehicles look. I like to keep them clean. I don't like garbage on the inside, and obviously I keep the outside relatively clean whenever I can. So especially in nicer weather, I do like getting my car washed. Now, the one big thing you'd have to realize is that with one of these, with the roof rack, you actually can't put this through an automated car wash. You would have to either hand wash it or go to a touchless wash, which obviously it's pretty harsh on your paint. It's maybe not the best for your clear coat. So that's something to consider. If you are someone who loves to hand wash their car, or maybe doesn't really care if their car is dirty because a TRD Pro is, supposed to be for the off-road, it's not supposed to be this squeaky clean vehicle, then maybe this is a great fit for you. But looking at this, especially from the front, you can tell that if you did put this through an automated car wash with brushes, you might get yourself into a little bit of trouble. So definitely take that into consideration if you're, gonna get this prior generation TRD Pro. Now, talking about price on one of these, and this is where the interesting bit comes, is that on today's current market, these are fetching some insane value. Now, this back in 2019, if you came to a Toyota dealership here in Canada, from everything I'm seeing online, because I don't have written on anywhere, on internal documents, what this exact MSRP was. But what I have found, this came in MSRP $59,560. Now, pause that right there, because if you look on today's current markets, you'd be seeing a lot of these TRD Pros are in the 60s, high 60s, or even in the 70s. And that's just, what they're asking plus tax. So pretty crazy to think this is 6 years later, and this one in front of me is actually fetching more than what it would have costed brand new. Now, obviously, you look at a used price versus a used price, that is current market value, and there are some things you don't have to pay for. Obviously, like, freight and PDI, dealer administration fees, any government fees, stuff like that. But you still have selling price plus tax and licensing to consider. So if you're in the market for one, if you have one, maybe now is the time to sell it. Who knows? Definitely come take a peek at what we have, on our used lot, on our new lot, if you were thinking about getting out of it or just selling it entirely. I think that could be a pretty good option for any consumers on today's markets. Again, my name's Aiden with Upper James Toyota. If you guys did like this video, please do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our future Toyota related content. And I'll check you guys out in the next video.